No, this is not going to be a video on Pope Francis and what he's been able to do from a socioeconomic, socially, and in different causes throughout the world. That's for somebody else to speak about. We look at it from a different perspective here. And obviously, we will delve maybe into it a little bit, scratch the surface on certain things, but not delve into them deep. Because again, this is not what it's about. Few times, actually never, have we seen a pope be so intertwined with football. And it's crazy to say that because, well, football's a reflection of society. I've always said that. That's a given. But few times has a pope been impactful in the world of football like Pope Francis. When the pope came about, the first thing that exploded, fan of San Lorenzo. And San Lorenzo fans always had a sense of pride in knowing that the Pope was one of them. And he was one of them in the literal sense of the word. Can we recap? Yeah. Since he was a child, he was going to San Lorenzo. His father played basketball at San Lorenzo. He'd go constantly, regardless of where San Lorenzo were playing, whether it was in his childhood, whether it was in his youth, whether it was in his adulthood now during the time he was at service with the church. He was always involved with San Lorenzo at a certain point. So much so that they even recognized that many times when he was the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he would celebrate Mass at the club. And that ended up being part of the relationship that he had with San Lorenzo and the relationship he had with football. Because I had the fortune. It's kind of weird, and I'll sidetrack myself just a little bit because these things, at least in recent years, have come in twos. When I was in Italy a couple of years ago, I happened to be there. That I was in Florence the day Pele died. So much so that I was on television just hours after Pele passed away in Florence. Then I end up being in Pisa doing a video on Pele, and then a few days later, the Pope passes away. The Pope ends up passing away. Well, the previous Pope passed away. I happen to be over in St. Peter's Basilica in that whole procession with my family, seeing the Pope exposed, being for public viewing. It was kind of a macabre scene, but it ends up being part of what it is. Now, and now for those of you who aren't familiar, happens in two again. The Pope passed away, but yesterday, one of the greatest players in Boca history, Ugo Orlando Gatti, ends up passing away a day before him. He also had died of complications from pneumonia. Although at the time I'm recording this, the official cause of death for the Pope hasn't been revealed just yet. It will be revealed shortly thereafter. So after this video is up, you'll probably end up saying, wait, you missed it. No, this is right before. Gatti ends up, so you end up having two icons of football. Obviously, I'm not putting Gatti alongside Pelé, but in Argentina, Gatti is one of the great goalkeepers of all time in Argentine football, one of the great legends of Boca Juniors, and he passed away just the day before, or hours before, Pope Francis ends up passing away. So it kind of funny that things happened in twos in this particular situation. I digress. When you talk about Pope Francis, it ends up being, yeah, he was inclusive, but he was inclusive in many things, and football was one of them because all of a sudden you see footballers becoming more prevalent and more present over at the Vatican. Leo Messi being one of those. San Lorenzo, when they won the Copa Libertadores the year after the Pope was elected, they win the Copa Libertadores. They go eventually to the Vatican to visit the Pope with the cup, and it was a surreal moment because never had that happened before. Obviously, there had never been a Pope from America. There'd never been a Pope from America. Period. So let's start there. And that ends up changing the dynamic. You saw a lot more Argentines with much more fervor. Yeah, you also saw a lot of Brazilians. You also saw Zico going with a Flamengo jersey. You saw a lot of footballers going in and were taking pictures with the Pope, and the Pope was so much so that when you would go to the Vatican Museum, you would see a lot of Argentine national team jerseys signed by the team. You would see Leo Messi jersey signed. You see the San Lorenzo jersey signed by the team that won the Libertadores. You saw a lot of football related paraphernalia at the museum. So that's what made this Pope so interesting, because many of the bishops, and many were being interviewed on Argentine television early this morning and later on throughout the day, and many were saying there was two things that the Pope enjoyed talking about in Verso Rogo. Number two, politics. Number one, football. That was his passion. That was what he loved doing, and he loved talking about San Lorenzo. And he always was. Many were even saying that he tried his best to keep up, obviously with the time difference, to keep up with what San Lorenzo was doing. Although San Lorenzo, in an administrative, institutional manner, haven't been doing too well the past couple of years, that's where his heart was. That's where his passion was. That's where his footballing love has always been, or always was, or maybe we can even say always will be. And that's where all of this has become such an interesting topic, because now you see teams like Flamengo showing the Pope with a Flamengo jersey. You see sayings that the Pope had, yes, there's an Argentine Pope, but God is Brazilian, in terms of the banter that was being made in the quote unquote diplomacy that he was trying to have within two footballing rivals. And it was always very candid, and it was always very heartwarming and very relatable. And those were that was one of the qualities that made him so relatable to the football fan, to the average man, to the person that was always going and spending their hard-earned money, or maybe on being a socio at San Lorenzo, to going and buying tickets to support their team, regardless of what the team was. Obviously, many of the fans, and it's funny, I was speaking to an Huracan fan recently, which is San Lorenzo's biggest rival, and they say, is there a player for San Lorenzo that you absolutely respect? And they say, yeah, one, the Pope. It's heartwarming from that perspective, in a time where many are very sad, for obvious reasons. Many are heartbroken to see that a person passes away, but maybe through football there's some of that healing, or some of that, it's all good. And maybe that's where he believed that the healing could occur, and he didn't do it from a business standpoint, where you've heard people like Gianni Infantino say, yeah, football is love, football unites the world. No, football unites their wallets. But the Pope was actually sincere when he would say things that were looking to unify things that were looking to be unified, in terms of what he was looking to grow out of, and looking to help grow even more, pardon the redundancy. So seeing him with the Italian national team, seeing him with the Argentine national team at one point, seeing him welcome them with open arms, and never say no. Even his beloved San Lorenzo, whenever they'd go to the Vatican, he basically everything, okay, no problem. Seeing how relatable, how passionate he was with his team, and not only his team in Argentina, which is obvious, knowing where he comes from, where he came from, but also knowing that football was such an integral part of what this administrator, or this papacy was all about. And it makes it more human, more real, instead of the extravagant and kiss the ring type of attitudes that were taken in the past. Not to go and take a shot at papacies of the past, which is kind of unnecessary, but it's a comparison compared to what was, what is, and what many will probably be expecting will be. We shall see.